ENT specialist, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, and General Surgeon, Dr. Marina Kurian. They'll be joined by guest experts to discuss an array of newsworthy medical and health issues. You're invited to ask the doctors anything. The physicians and their guests' views are their own and do not represent any institution. Please contact your doctor for any personal questions. Please hit share and join us live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at She's On Call, hashtag She's On Call. Please welcome our hosts.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar. I'm an ear, nose, and throat surgeon in practice with ENT and Allergy Associates in New York and New Jersey.
And I'm Marina Kurian, and I'm a general surgeon in the New York City area. But today I want to throw something different in. I also do weight loss surgery and some medical weight loss as well, which the reason I threw that in is because I have a friend and colleague joining us today. We're so excited to have her. Dr. Wendy Scinta is clinical associate professor of family medicine at SUNY Upstate in Syracuse, and she is an expert in adult and childhood obesity and the past president of the Obesity Medicine Association. So we're so excited to have her on.
And our other guest today, you may recall, some of you older people in the audience, that eyes, ear, nose, and throat used to be all one society in the beginning. We broke away from each other, and luckily we're back together. Tamara Fountain is a professor of ophthalmology, which is eye surgery, and specialized in oculoplastic surgery. She's professor and chief emeritus at Rush University Medical College in Chicago, Illinois, and she is the president-elect of the enormous American Academy of Ophthalmology. Marina is the president of the New York State chapter of our overarching organization, the American College of Surgeons, and I was past president of the American Academy of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery. So today we're going to talk about eye disease, obesity, COVID, but also leadership, because it's wonderful that these two wonderful leaders have joined us today.
Yeah, it's a very exciting. And by the way, Siju, you almost stumbled over otolaryngology, and I was like, yes, because it's a little bit of mouthful. But
I've only been doing it for like 30 years, so give me time.
Well, you heard it also, your dad, so it's been long. Well, okay, just a little longer, 32 years. No, I'm just kidding. So, we have, as you guys who watch us know, we do discuss the news. So we do kind of want to get into some of the news of the day. And part of this discussion today, we're going to talk a little bit about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Representative John Lewis, who just recently passed. Sujana?
So we are really so sad to hear about the passing of this incredible civil rights icon, Representative John Lewis. He passed of pancreatic cancer this weekend, and he passed within about 8 months of receiving the diagnosis. The world has lost a very special soul, and we hope to move forward using his guiding principles. Interestingly, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg also has pancreatic cancer, but she got that diagnosis in 2009. She had a health scare this week with some recurrence of her tumor. But I think, Marina, this speaks to what we've learned over time for personalized medicine and the way cancer acts differently in different people.
Yeah, 100%. So pancreatic cancer does carry a poor prognosis at 5 years, but there are some patients that do much better with the disease. And certainly, the notorious RBG is one of those people. We expect nothing less from her to fight pancreatic cancer with such ferocity. The other thing is that pancreatic research is ongoing. If you guys are listening and interested in donating, the Lustgarten Foundation for Pancreatic Cancers is a great one, but also many of the American Cancer Society and many of the institutions that do cancer around the country also accept donations. So something to think about. It's not getting, is it?
So I think what we should do, unfortunately, we have to talk more about COVID. So COVID has not gone away. If you saw the New York Times today, the front page of the magazine says why we're losing the battle with COVID-19. And that is a nurse in Houston, Texas on the cover wearing an N95 mask, a surgical mask, gown, gloves, 2 hats. We are exhausted. But I will tell you, the hard work by the frontline professionals in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut has paid off. New York celebrated the lack of a death from COVID-19 on July 11th, 4 months to the day of the first COVID death. So we can do it. We have a couple of maps to share with you quickly because we have so much to talk about with our guests. And please hit like and share and tell your friends, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, scroll.in. I'm sure Instagram. So please share with your friends. This map represents the results of a survey of 250,000 people who were called up and asked, do you wear a mask or don't you wear a mask? And you'll see the darker are the places where people reported that they did wear a mask. And hopefully they wore that mask correctly, which means wearing it over your nose and under your chin. I think we have a CDC graphic that shows what that looks like. But you can't be wearing your mask under your nose. That doesn't help. And so here's the correct way to wear a mask, not under your nose and not as a chin strap, as Governor Cuomo of New York likes to say. The next couple of maps show the sharp increase in numbers in the United States. So we're seeing the rust-colored map on the left shows the new cases adjusted for population. And you can see that the Southeast is unfortunately winning. And that corresponds to the new deaths adjusted for population. So this is a real disease that's ongoing. And, you know, it's not like the US is unfortunately a leader in this, but we do see this around the world. And this map shows sort of the leaderboard, unfortunately, in COVID cases around the world.
This is not where you want to be a leader.
I know, this is where you don't want to be a leader. I'll tell you, India has about 1 million confirmed cases and 26,000 deaths. We really, as expats, we have to say that Bollywood's first family, the Bachchans, have nearly all been affected and are in the hospital right now. So we hope for their recovery as we hope for all people who contract COVID to recover completely.
Yeah, so the other thing that's happening is mental health is a big issue it's always been a great big issue, right? But currently it's even bigger with COVID, with fear, with anxiety, with being stuck at home. I mean, so many issues, you know, unemployment going up, how it's affected our economy. I mean, who is not a little bit depressed and who doesn't have manifestations perhaps of new mental illness? And, you know, one of our Twitterati's, Esther Chu, Chu EK is who she is on Twitter, but she was just on CNN talking about her own bout with depression to try and not to take away the stigma of mental illness, because being depressed, it happens and there's treatment out there, but no one should be ashamed about it. And currently, if you're, the nationwide number for reaching out is I have to look down at the number, sorry, 1-800-273-TALK. But in 2 years, the FCC just said that the new 3-digit number, just like there's a 911, a 311, a 411, the new number is going to be 988. So that's really something I think wonderful that you can just dial 3 digits and get in contact with someone regionally to get help.
So I know there's a lot, and we certainly will have psychiatrists and mental health professionals on a future show. But today we're going to talk about obesity and ophthalmology and leadership. And we're really excited to welcome into the studio Dr. Wendy Scinta and Dr. Tamara Fountain. So welcome aboard, colleagues.
Yeah, welcome. And so Wendy is an expert on adult and childhood obesity. She's a clinical assistant professor of family medicine at SUNY Upstate in Syracuse. and her practice is Medical Weight Loss of New York. And again, she is a past president of the Obesity Medicine Association. I'm so thrilled to have you here. We both are.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a thrill.
And Dr. Tamara Fountain is an ophthalmologist, specialty in oculoplastic surgery. She's done a lot of writing about trauma to the eyes, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. She is a professor at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, Illinois, and she is the president-elect of the American Academy of Ophthalmology. We have people viewing from all over. Suchi's viewing from Delaware. We had viewers from Pennsylvania. We have people writing in. J.H. Kim asked about epigenetics of cancer, and I think we're going to bank some of those questions for specialists in those areas. But please continue to like and share and tell your friends, because I think our two guests are going to be talking about two topics that are really very important to all of us. So we want to welcome you. How are things where you are? Maybe Wendy, tell us how things are. I think you're in upstate New York, right?
I am. It's slowed down. You know, it's interesting to me as you know, in upstate, because it really has quieted down quite a bit, the number of cases, but the mental health aspects of the disease seem to be escalating still. So I spend a lot of time during the day talking about that, as I'm sure, you know, all of you guys do, just trying to keep people calm and, you know, let them know that they're going to be okay and I'm here for them and those kind of things. So I would say that's the paramount part. I crash at the end of the day from all the counseling. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Are you doing telehealth, Wendy, now?
What's that?
Are you doing telehealth?
No, our patients are all coming in now. We worked through the whole thing. And for me, I have to tell you, we had a lot of physicians locally who closed their practices, which I couldn't believe. So a lot of my patients did not have access to their primary care physicians, and I treat obesity, which is such a huge, you know, confounding issue with the COVID, right? We all know that they don't fare as well. So it's incredibly important they take care of themselves. And in my case, where we're working on weight loss and adjusting meds, it's important that they stay attached and connected to me. So I did find during that time, I was doing a lot of primary care in addition to the obesity medicine, in addition to the mental health counseling. So it was like every visit was like 3 visits. And it continues to be that way to some extent.
I'm really glad you articulated that, because I will tell you, as a subspecialty surgeon, I found the same thing. We stayed open, we closed for a month, but we kept emergency office hours. And I'll tell you, I took care of ENT, but I took care of general medicine. I took care of absolutely the counseling. I've been wondering why I've been so tired at the end of the day. I've been attributing it to all the mask wear, but really it's the mental gymnastics to try to keep the patients, the staff, and myself calm as we fight this.
Absolutely.
So Tamara, how are things in Chicago?
You know, we are coming out of the dark phases. We're opening up. You know, we closed down. We're lucky that for the most part, our governor and the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, are in lockstep with their procedures. And we pretty much shut down our state to only essential workers around March, when the rest of the world changed for all of us. And we were so concerned about possibly following in the steps of New York that we deployed we pulled in retired physicians in the state. We set up an entirely new pop-up hospital near McCormick Center. If you've ever been to Chicago, it's a big convention area. So we were ready for the onslaught, but fortunately, we were able to really flatten that curve in the month of April. But our American Academy of Ophthalmology asked and recommended that ophthalmologists across the country shutter their practices to try to flatten the curve. And we certainly, for the most part, did that here in Chicago. My practice shuttered, I think, in 6 weeks between middle of March and beginning of May, when they opened up for elective surgeries. I saw probably 10 patients in the clinic area. I did a couple of emergency surgeries. our ORs were shut down except for absolutely essential cases. So it was pretty universal, and most people accepted that. And then Governor Pritzker at the beginning of May started opening up for elective surgeries, and slowly, as we've hit our numbers, we've been opening up society. And for many of us in Chicago, we only get a couple of good months of weather a year, so we're especially happy now that Lori Lightfoot, our mayor, has opened up the lakefront. So we are keeping our physical distance and wearing masks when appropriate outside, but certainly always inside. But we're trying to enjoy the limited Chicago summer we always get.
Yeah, it is limited in Chicago, but it's beautiful when you have summer there. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying. Yeah. Tamara, can you just go through for our viewership, which is not all medical people, can you let people know what's the difference between ophthalmology, optometry, and oculoplastics?
Okay, I know it's a lot of O's and a lot of letters. Ophthalmologists are doctors of medicine or doctors of osteopathy who have completed 4 years of training after college and then have gone on to a 3-year residency after a year of internship. And part of our training is the entire arena and spectrum of eye care. We fit glasses, we treat glaucoma, we do surgery as well. So we're one-stop shopping. Optometry is in a separate allied field that also does 4 years of training. In different parts of the country, it's very state specific, but generally speaking, they do not have the same surgical privileges in most cases as ophthalmologists. We think of them as our teammates in the eye care team, and many ophthalmologists, about half of ophthalmologists, employ optometrists as part of their practice. And one other O that you didn't mention, which sometimes gets people confused, is optician, which is a person dedicated to the fitting of eyeglasses like I'm wearing today. It's actually quite an art once you choose your frame to get the right prescription so it's the perfect pair of glasses for you. Oculoplastics is an area within ophthalmology. It's quite surprising. Something as small as the eye could have so many different subspecialties. But I chose to specialize in oculoplastics, which is the focus on the area around the eye socket, we call that the orbit, the tear drainage system, as well as the eyelids. So I like to say everything around the eye, but not in the eye. That's what oculoplastics is. Got that? There's going to be a quiz.
And then we're going to have to spell it right because there's a lot of H's in the middle in ophthalmology as well.
Yeah.
So Wendy, we're always on this. Seems to me at a certain age, I reached the point where I was on this eternal quest against creeping obesity. And I'm wondering what you can tell us. One of our viewers actually pre-asked a question about emotions and eating and metabolism and hormones. I wonder if you can talk to us about that.
Wow, that's a lot of questions.
We have very smart viewers. It's amazing.
Yes. Okay. So I think, so first of all, emotional eating is something I'm seeing a lot of right now. And not just emotional eating, emotional drinking, emotional everything, right? I mean, people are, when you can't get to your gyms and you can't exercise, you have to come up with other compensatory mechanisms for your mood issues that you go through when you go through a stress like COVID. So it is something that we're definitely seeing a ton of. And I think it's very important to help people just sort of separate the emotion from the eating or the other compensatory mechanisms. So I try to get my patients to just take the emotions and first of all, figure out why you're feeling that way. I think we're all on the same page with COVID, which is stressful. Our whole lives have been turned upside down. But what can you do that's positive to help you through that at that time instead of eating? So can you go for a walk? Can you go, roll around with your dog or your kids? Can you go and exercise, get outside, or just meditate, something that takes you away from the food. So that is part of it. And then there's different medications that we can use in our field that helps so much with this because it really takes away that sort of addiction potential that food causes. And people forget that is a huge part of the obesity epidemic, the addiction of foods, and particularly sugar and carbs and things like that. So that's something that we focus specifically on, and we work very hard to deal with that, both behaviorally and with medications and nutrition as needed. So hormones, this is a huge player, especially for women. And it starts, people don't know this, many people don't know this, that it starts really in our like mid-30s when our testosterone starts to drop down. And our testosterone drops down before we start to see the true changes of menopause, hot flashes, night sweats, and those things. With testosterone dropping down, our muscle drops down. When our muscle drops down, our metabolism drops down. So if you are a woman who's kind of seeing that as you're going into your late 30s and then 40s and onward, it's because our metabolism dropped. So how can you change that? Well, you can exercise more, you can increase your protein so you can build muscle mass. Strength training is important. But one of my favorite ways of dealing with that is bioidentical hormone treatment. We do that in our office. A lot of people hear hormones and they're scared, but to tell you the truth, I give mostly testosterone for women, even when they are through menopause. It's very rare that you need to give both. It's very, because we aromatize a lot of the testosterone to estrogen that we need, and then you don't have to deal with the side effects of the estrogen. Testosterone is amazing in helping your sense of well-being, helping mental clarity, focus, libido, all those kind of things, and it does increase metabolism. So I'm a huge proponent of that.
That's really interesting. Are you sure testosterone drops even in female surgeons?
I'm running out to get more testosterone.
Right, exactly. My friend Sherry Preston,
4 hours from you guys. Come on over.
Sherry Preston, who's watching, who works with ABC News and works on their amazing podcast called Perspective, or Perspectives, writes it's a terrible equation of hot flashes and stress from COVID and wearing a mask, and we're just a hot mess everywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. And lack of sleep. In sleep, when you're not sleeping, you have more of a tendency to gain weight. You're hungrier. You don't metabolize as well. So yeah, it's a wicked, wicked curse to us women right now.
So we have some questions from the audience, and we had a great question last week from Bhargavi Satyagal. And I wonder if we can put that up on the screen. And she talked about, we're not flying places now, but many of us are thinking about long road trips with our families. So how do we stay safe if we are in the car, at different gas stations, at different rest areas, and then checking into a hotel? So what are the risks that we're rating? And I asked my friend Pauline Fromer from Fromer Travel Guides to give us the travel industry take on this. So let's listen to what Pauline had to say, and then maybe we'll ask Dr. Fountain and Dr. Scinta to weigh in as well.
The key thing that you want to do is make sure that you have a hotel to stay in. You're going to need advanced reservations nowadays because many hotels have gone out of business. You can't just roll into town and expect to find a place to stay. It could be dangerous if you have to sleep in your car. The other thing is go with a hotel that advertises what its sanitation processes are. A lot of hotels now are using acid fogs. That's the industry standard. You want that. As well, you want to make sure that the hotel keeps its rooms dark for 24 hours between customers. Finally, remember that the hotel experience is your room. There are no more buffets. There's no more spas. A lot of hotel pools are closed. So you want to get a nice room.
Wow. Can I just say, Pauline has the most amazing COVID pandemic hair that I have seen. It's amazing. But she said a lot of stuff. I mean, interesting that, I have friends that used to go whenever they traveled and stayed somewhere with their kids, she'd whip out the Clorox wipes and clean down, wash down everything. And of course, everyone remember that the TV remote's the worst thing in the room, but the phone is probably number 2. And so she would wipe everything down. I can't even find a Clorox wipe. I cannot get them. I randomly go into like a pharmacy or a store, just, you know, a grocery store, just when I'm walking by, just to see, maybe by chance they have one. I can't get them. Instead, I have jugs of Clorox at home. And so, you know, that's not something that you want to travel with, but I suppose that is part of traveling nowadays. Wendy or Tamara, have you guys had to go to a hotel recently?
Go ahead, Cameron.
Go ahead, Wendy.
So I actually celebrated my 26th wedding anniversary at a casino out here, and we went for dinner and we played some golf and stayed in one of the nice rooms there. It was very different for sure, but they had the tables separated to nice. I mean, I think we may be ahead of where you guys are out on this side, but they had the tables about 6 feet apart. The servers wore masks. It was very lovely. We were able to go outside and have drinks, and so it's an experience still. Very, like you said, it's different. We were at a casino; people were wearing masks in the casino, but it did feel there was some sense of normal there too, just to be able to go and eat and hang out and have a dining experience was so nice. And our room was perfect. And you know what was weird? There was no way you could get ice. They change are kind of strange to me, but yeah, there was no way to get ice, so you had to just go drink water or bring your own whatever. But no buffets, nothing like that. But I had a lovely time. It was just a nice experience to just get out. And I think my personal opinion is, if you are concerned, if you're someone who gets very anxious about about germs and stuff, the best thing you can do is protect yourself, because not everyone has the same level of anxiety when it comes to that. We do have Clorox here, so I'll send you some, Marina.
I'm with you.
Interstate inter-doctor commerce of cleaning products. I like that.
Our own.
I have it in my office, but I won't take it out of the office. I need it there, So I've been just looking for it personally, and it's incredibly difficult to find.
Yeah.
I think Wendy brings up a good point we all have friends and relatives who run the spectrum of anxiety about this disease and how they're going to catch it. And while I haven't left Chicago since this all started, my parents, who live in Minneapolis, did decide that they would brave getting on the road to come down for Father's Day. And so I have to go out and see patients every day. So I figured that I was the vector. So we did try to keep our social distance within my house, and we ate outside every evening. But I think the take-home message is ultimately going back to the very basics, whether you're flying in an airplane, whether you're in a hotel, is to try to avoid touching your face, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, unless you have just washed your hands. Try to avoid being near other people and wear your mask. Encourage other people to wear their masks. I'm going to be thinking about getting on an airplane pretty soon, and the airline industry assures us that they've taken extraordinary measures to keep the air circulating, which is another point. I think when you're unable to socially or physically distance inside a building to try to keep the air circulating with fans, keeping doors open, et cetera. So there are some modifications that we can all make in our professional environments and in our personal environments to try to decrease the transmission.
Tamara, I think also the airplanes are also doing a lot of extra filtration of the air, which is very important. Ritu Marwa asked a question on LinkedIn about cataracts, and if you can slow the formation of a cataract, and what kind of cataracts there are.
So many people don't even really quite understand what a cataract is. Many people think of it as a growth. And a cataract is nothing more than the gradual clouding of the clear lens inside your eye over the course of a lifetime. And kind of like gray hair, people will experience clouding at slightly different rates. Some people have cloudy lenses in their late 40s or early 50s, and others are pretty clear into their 80s and 90s. Also, like gray hair, it bothers some people more than others. If you are an airline pilot and spending a lot of time flying at night, you might have glare symptoms when your vision, when you look at the eye chart, is 20/20 or 20/25, but you're bothered by glare. So it's not just vision that we track. We really track people's impairment from the clouding of the lens. Now, generally speaking, we see cataracts as people get older. However, there are instances where we'll see cataracts. We can have congenital cataracts where children are born with them. We can see cataract formation prematurely for things like chronic UV exposure, the use of steroids. Certain types of diseases will accelerate the formation of cataracts. But we generally find cataract surgery is, I believe, still the #1 Medicare operation by number in the United States. When I did my first cataract back in the Pleistocene era of 1989, it took me a half an hour to get the lens out of the eye and 2.5 hours to sew up after the new lens was put in. I will assure the audience that these days, a good cataract surgeon can get your lens out and get a new lens in about 5 to 10 minutes, which is remarkable. We have amazing success rates with cataract surgery, which is really the bread and butter for all general ophthalmologists.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of clarity. We have some other questions, right, Suju?
Yeah, so I think people are quite concerned about the concept of obesity in children. We had the last semester of school pretty much was at home, lots and lots of screen time, no organized, obviously, sports activities. And, everybody in the house is stressed. And we sometimes downplay the stress on our children, but they feel it when we're stressed out. So maybe, Dr. Scinta, you can talk to us a bit. I know you have a book out that's magnificent called Bounce. And maybe you can talk to us about different ways that we can help our children develop and maintain healthy habits.
Oh, sure, I'd love to. So I think one of the biggest things that we have to remember as parents is, at least until our children start to drive, we control the food, right? So if there's bad stuff in the house, chances are our kids are going to find a way to eat that bad food. So what we have to focus really hard on is making sure that we as parents model good behavior and practice what we preach. Now, if I do see this in some families where you have one family member, either an older family member or a parent that just doesn't want to be part of this unified effort to help the child. And if that's the case, first of all, it's very tough. Try to encourage them to get over. But if it's not, if you can't do it, just at least make them put their food away from where the rest of the healthy eating family is. But it absolutely has to be a family effort. Bounce actually stands for something. The B is for behavior. The O is for optimizing metabolism. So we have our children eating breakfast, very important, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. The U is united as a family. The C is counting steps. So huge thing, I will say, both as a parent and as a physician, is you have got to take the electronics away from your children, including cell phones, and get them outside playing. You don't have to worry so much about transmission if they're outside running around, and playing with each other. Kids need that so desperately right now. So get them out there playing. Take the electronics away. I know they're going to have they're going to give you a hard time. They're going to bucket, and that includes computers and cell phones. And just get them out there and doing something that is active. So anyhow, that's the N or the C. And then E is elimination diet. Elimination diet is just taking the bad foods and slowly getting rid of them and bringing good foods in to replace them. So the book is available in all electronic outlets, and it's also available by paper at our website. If you want to get a paper copy, it's weightlosscny.com. You can get paper there. But either way, actually, you can get paper on the websites too. But either way, it's a great start, and all the things I'm mentioning are all detailed in there.
So I just want to reiterate, because like every former medical student, I love acronyms, right? So B is for behavior, O is
Right.
for optimizing
Metabolism.
metabolism.
So that's eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you can get a snack in between, that's great.
So really, people need to not skip meals because that messes up their metabolism.
Unless you're doing something like intermittent fasting, where you're actually trying to take advantage of that. But we don't do that with kids. So for kids, they should be eating fairly regularly so that they don't make up the calories later at night.
So B is for behavior. O is for optimizing metabolism. U is uniting as a family.
Right.
N is, I'm sorry.
I forgot N, didn't I? N is notation. Sorry about that. N is notation of food and movement. So when we say notation of food, it doesn't mean doing a full food diary, but just kind of having a parent or if the child's old enough, having the child write down what they're eating so that we can get a sense of what's going on and what's going into their mouth. A lot of times we don't even know some of the stuff that our kids are eating. And that is the basis of the elimination diet. You can't start eliminating if you don't know what they're taking in. So that's what the N is.
Great. And then C is counting steps and E is the elimination diet. I think that's really very helpful and easy to share with our families as a family goal. So let's go back to the I's for a second. We have a couple of comments and questions. Andrea Shellman says, now's a really good time to look at your old vacation pictures and reminisce. And Ellen Austin is saying, is it good, Dr. Fountain, to have a near lens and a far lens implanted? Like, is it a good idea? And what does that do? How does your brain process that?
I think what your viewer is asking is that in general, when you're about to get cataract surgery, you're usually over the age of about 40. And one other thing about the development of the lens is that as we all get older, we lose the ability to change the shape of our lenses so that we can focus at distance and we can focus up close. Most people don't realize if you're absentmindedly gazing out the window and then you look at your computer screen, that you actually have done work in that moment to focus the images on something that's closer to you than at a distance. And so what happens over time is the lens loses its ability to change its shape. If you have photographers out there, we know how we change our focal length on our cameras. Our eyes are like cameras, and they change their focal lengths too, effortlessly. Except that then we lose that ability as we get older, which is why as we get older, you start having to hold things further and further away because we lose that ability up close. And so most people, like myself, these are what we call progressive lenses. If I look out my window, I'm looking through the top, and as I'm looking at you all, I'm looking downward a little bit, so that's in focus. So my glasses are making up for what my lens used to do automatically. If you're getting cataract surgery, in most cases, the presumption is that you're going to not hopefully need to wear your glasses, or at least not be as dependent on them. But your surgeon is going to want to know a little bit about your lifestyle and what your vocations are, what your avocations are, how you use your eyes, how nearsighted or perhaps farsighted are you. And it has to be different for every single person. What your cataract surgeon may recommend is that you have both lenses made for distance, but then you might have to put on reading glasses. Or your cataract surgeon might say, we'll have one distance eye and one up close eye, which is called monofocal vision. And so there are different ways that we can try to get people as less dependent on glasses as possible, but to maximize their vision where they spend most of their time looking. And so in conclusion, I would just say this, a very individual decision. People who have worn contact lenses can sometimes simulate and trial that monovision idea, but your cataract surgeon will talk with you about what's the best recommendation for you when you're considering what kind of lens to put inside your eye.
And Tamara, one more thing, we're doing a lot of protests, and we talked about this was it about 2 weeks ago with someone, but you tweeted about eye injuries during protests and had a great phrase, using your voice shouldn't mean losing your vision. And if we can talk about rubber bullets, and I just saw actually recently something about beanbag rounds as well.
Well, we all know what happened on Memorial Day with the death of George Floyd in my hometown of Minneapolis. And the American Academy of Ophthalmology, within a few days, came out with a statement denouncing the racism that underlied his death. We also noticed, as protests were taking place across the country, a rash of ocular injuries related not only to rubber bullets, but other projectiles. I think the general overarching terminology for those is kinetic impact projectiles, or KIPs. And similar to when we had the mass shooting in Las Vegas and other mass shootings, when physician groups have come out advocating for public health measures related, in the case of the shooting, to reasonable gun control measures, we know that there are people who feel that that's not under the purview of nonprofit or medical organizations. The mission of the American Academy of Ophthalmology is empowering lives and protecting sight. And so we looked at these injuries from what's called non-lethal projectiles, and we felt that we had a public health statement to make. And not only educating the public about the potential for eye injuries, and we also have on our website during that week, we posted a number of recommendations for people who were taking part in peaceful protests to protect their eyes. We recommended water bottles to rinse the eyes in case you came in contact with tear gas and other chemical irritants. We also recommended that people use eye protection like you would in any other setting. You can get them from your hardware store, just polycarbonate protective lenses, and we recommended those as well. But in addition, we felt that many people think of non-lethal as non-permanent injury, but losing an eye is a permanent lifelong injury. And so we felt it was within our lane, so to speak, to make a statement on this. And we called for the cessation of the use of rubber bullets. And in fact, we have been successful, along with other groups, in getting that language into a congressional bill that passed the House a few weeks ago. Just calling attention to the fact that these are extremely lethal, and we don't feel a person going out exercising their First Amendment rights deserves to be blinded for the rest of their lives. So that's from where the statement came and why we made it.
Yeah, it's so important. Absolutely.
I commend all the medical societies. Normally, we all try to stay away from politics because we care for people no matter what your politics are, and we will always care for you no matter what your politics are. But I think we were all moved to action, and I really do appreciate the American Academy of Ophthalmology coming out so strong. We have one more medical question, and then Marina and I would really like to talk to you guys about your leadership journey. But this is a question from Mark Lee, who's watching from the South, and he's asking, what is the optimum weight for children? And maybe, Wendy, Dr. Scinta, maybe you can explain what BMI is and what we need to know about our own numbers to ensure that we are healthy.
Sure. So there really is no optimum weight for children. It is based on that child's specific BMI percentile. So many of you have heard the term BMI. We all, many of us in medicine don't feel that it's a very good way of measuring obesity, but it's something. So whereas adults have body mass index that is pretty stable because we're not growing, and BMI, by the way, is it's a measurement of weight and height together. So so for children, because their height is changing, they have what's called the BMI percentile, and the percent of their BMI is then graphed just like the regular, height and weight graphs that your children get. And if their BMI percentile is greater than 99, then they're considered they keep in the classes, but that's the highest class of obesity for children. And then greater than 85 to 95% is considered more of a, lower grade. And then below you get into overweight and then normal weight. So at any rate, what you want to do to be able to tell where your child should be is when you go to the pediatrician or to your family practitioner, just see where they are on the chart. And the goal is to get them below the 85th percentile. If you can do that, keep them between 50 and 85, then you're going to have a healthy child. So that's what it's really based on.
And then, can I do a little follow-up? So somehow the ophthalmologists and the optometrists got us not to feel self-conscious about wearing glasses. Like maybe it was because they wear awesome glasses like Tamara. But, obesity is still, it's looked down upon. People, there's a lot of fat shaming. How do we change that?
Boy, that's a tough one. I think that I know, why am I getting all these tough ones? And they're all like so mixed up. By the way, here, I'm putting my glasses on. I'm not going to be glasses shamed. There you go. Fat shaming is tough. I have to say, I'm not of the belief that you should not be concerned about the health of your body. I think that there's a movement that has taken it way over in the other direction, where you shouldn't worry about it. There's a health implication with obesity that we all have to stay on top of. But I am all about making my patients feel that they are awesome regardless of what weight they are at. And I do agree that the fat shame component is one of the few areas of discrimination that still seems to be okay with everybody. And it's not okay. I mean, the kids that I see start getting bullied when they're, 4 and 5 years old, as early as kindergarten. So that just sticks with them forever. It's amazing. Our experiences in childhood when we're very young like that, even when you're a 50-year-old woman, you are still so, so messed up by that experience, or man. And so it's so important that we get control of that. But I also believe that children need to, learn how to be very comfortable in their skin and to know how awesome they are, regardless of what their weight is. My kid patients, they're all really do great in school. They're like super smart. They're super sweet, compassionate kids. And I just always try very hard to make sure that they hang on to that and use that to help define who they are and not just their body.
Thank you for that. Listen, we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about leadership roles. We were calling this the President's Show amongst us. We didn't actually say it to everybody else, but I'm just going to give a quick blurb about how I got to where I am at the New York State president of the ACS, New York State chapter of the ACS. But it was really more being involved and joining early on and then working up toward the different levels and showing interest and participating. And then certainly with my national societies, it was a lot of working on committees and being present, being engaged, and actually moving the needle on a lot of different projects to end up getting up to more leadership positions in my surgical societies. So who's next? Should we do Tamara? I mean, I think everyone's journey is going to be completely different.
Yeah, the journey may be different, but I think the elements are similar. And I don't know about the rest of the incredible women on this panel, but I think many leaders don't start out saying, this is what I want to do with my professional career. At least that's not the way I looked at my professional career. I think for a lot of my journey has been simply a natural curiosity that's always made me willing to show up at something that I might not have thought I would enjoy. So just recognizing an opportunity, I try to tell my adult children as well as my residents that, when you get invited to do something, take advantage of that. It might not sound interesting on its face, but you'll never know what you might find by simply just being present and showing up at something. And I think another thing that helps when you are climbing the ladder, and I hate to use that term because, again, it implies that you have this destination. But as you're moving through an organization, many times you're going to be the youngest or most junior person in the room. You may be the only woman in a sea of men. You may be the only underrepresented person in a sea of majority people. Whatever it is, you're going to sometimes feel as if your voice doesn't matter or that you don't have anything to contribute. And I try to counsel my mentees that your position, whether it be the one of a few women or the most junior person, that may be exactly the reason why you've been asked to join that group, because you've got a different perspective. You haven't drunk the Kool-Aid. You can come in with some fresh ideas and ask questions that other people don't even know to ask because they've been so accustomed to the way things have been. So I encourage people, as they are finding their way in their careers, to not be afraid to speak up and to ask questions, because more often than not, that's exactly why they want you in the room. I've also found I don't think any of us gets where we are without people who have seen something in us and who not only mentor us, but choose to advocate for us. And I think showing some gratitude and following up with people, writing thank you notes, following up with an email, that kind of relationship building is critical, because nobody gets where they are without somebody helping them along the way. I think as leaders, one thing that we can look out for is to be that person on the other end, help to support other young, up and coming people to achieve their success as well.
I think, so these are the graphics of our 4 societies, and I really appreciate, Marina and Tamara, what you've said. I think that reflects a great deal of our journeys. Here's the 4 of us. So this is the group picture is Tamara with the board of directors of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and you can see that the women, first of all, dressed fabulously for this picture, and there are very few, but we can be small and we can be mighty. Wendy giving a talk at the Obesity Medicine Association. Marina speaking at the American College of Surgeons. And then one of the coolest things about being president is that when it's not COVID and you can actually have an in-person meeting, you get to invite the most awesome people to be your keynote speaker. So this is the short person in the picture is me, and the tall person is Dr. Mae Jemison, who is one of my heroes. She's a physician, an engineer, a ballerina, and an astronaut. And the chance to meet these wonderful people, the chance to make a difference. I'm going to jump into my story a little, and I'm going to leave the final wrap up for Wendy on this topic. I'll tell you, I echo everything that Marina and Tamara said, and I'll tell you, once you finally get to the table, that's your opportunity to be yourself. You should lead the way you want to lead. You don't have to be a carbon copy of everybody else. I think when I was president of the Academy and president of its board of directors, I was able to influence with my style, with my inclusion of every voice at the table. We were able to move the needle forward again, as Marina said. One of my greatest achievements was the No More Manels clause in many of our societies, where the rules got set down that we wouldn't allow any more male-only panels as invited panels at our society meetings. That No More Manels idea actually came to me from one of our executive producers, the one you guys are not seeing on the screen, Sri Srinivasan. And I think the concept of ensuring gender and ethnic diversity, geographical diversity, is a strength we bring to the table. I was really interested. The Obesity Medicine Association actually includes physicians and non-physicians, and I think that's a really interesting group to lead. And maybe, Wendy, you can talk to that.
Sure. So yes, we used to be the American Society of Bariatric Physicians, and what you see there is our rebranded logo, where we changed our name to the Obesity Medicine Association. And the reason was we wanted to be more inclusive with physician assistants and nurse practitioners. And through the course of the time that I've been president, we now have a nurse practitioner and a PA on our board. We have worked really hard to increase their involvement in all of the committees. And it really has been, it's been, I think, a very welcome change. It's where we're going as a society. You can try to fight it as physicians, but it's going to happen. So it's so much better to be able to just encourage them. And some of our, I will say, some of my our best leaders have come from that background, either a PA or NP, and they just have such unique and great ideas for us. As far as my leadership goes, you guys, you all hit such important things, just great stuff that you said. I think the one thing that for me that I felt very passionate about was that pediatric obesity had a voice. I'm a family practitioner, and I noticed that my society, which had many family practitioners in it, didn't touch on a pediatric obesity. So that was the thing that I sort of drove as I was moving up into leadership. Until now, we actually have an algorithm for pediatric obesity. We are, I would say, the clinical leaders for both adult and pediatric obesity at this point. And we're getting a really new group of folks as pediatricians involved in obesity medicine, which I can take a deep breath and rest now. I think the last thing I'll say is make sure you know when it's your time to step down and mentor others. So one of the things that happened to me is I was mentored by a lovely man who brought me into the ranks and introduced me to everybody. And I've always had my people that I have hoped would follow up behind me. And they are now some of the leaders as I step into my last position in leadership.
And I think that as women in leadership, we did not get here without he for she. Without our mentors, can be women, they can be men, and they can be actually younger people, just because they come up with a great presence or a great ideas that help motivate you to move whatever project you're on to a different level. And we do want to do 3 takeaways from each of our guests today. So Tamara, do you want to start with 3 things that you want to leave our viewership with?
I will leave 3 things for our viewership on leadership. Show up, speak up, and follow up.
Beautiful. Very nice.
Beautiful. You can say that again, Tamara.
Good.
I will. Show up, speak up, and follow up.
I love that because, I was thinking when you guys were talking, it's something I've always said. I believe that all of us who go on those committees, we are sharing our voice, but many times our voice is very similar to those of other people who are not in that position to speak. So Wendy, your 3 top thoughts, and it can be on obesity medicine, it can be on leadership, whatever you'd like.
Let's do obesity in general. I would say, number 1, it is a fixable problem. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've been through or whether you've had every surgery under the sun, it is still fixable. Know that you can be fixed and get in with medical professionals that can help you. We have some extra skills that really help us along. So make sure that you do that and don't give up. Number 2 is don't give up on your children and join the party, okay? Make sure that the whole family gets involved. Sit down to dinner. I think one good thing that's happened to COVID is during COVID people are cooking and they're sitting down together and they're sharing stories. That's huge. And then the third thing I would say, I will say this one in terms of leadership, is make sure you're representing your people. Don't try very hard to separate what you want from what they want, and the voice is there, and make sure you're representing them all equally.
Thank you. That's wonderful. We are just about out of time. So we want to thank both of you so much for coming on board and sharing your thoughts and your ideas, answering our audience's questions. If you guys came in late, please find us on YouTube and Facebook. You can watch the whole show. Tell your friends to watch. We want to thank our production team.
We have a great production team, and this doesn't happen just because Sujana and I like to talk.
So we want to thank our production team, and we want to tell you guys that next week we are going to be talking about the dreaded schools opening problem or issue or question. We're doing it in July because there are communities who want to open their schools in August. We will be featuring guests from infectious disease, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and from the National Association of School Nurses. So we will have guests who really know this subject and really understand the intricacies of it. And we really hope that you tune in and you tell your friends. And thank you again so much to our guests and our viewers today for tuning in.
And thank you. And you guys watching, start sending us your questions for us for next week. And you can find us at She's on Call on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Thanks so much, guys. See you next Sunday.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.